Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Savage. I'm the president of the City School District of Albany Board of Education. On behalf of the board, I welcome you to our meeting. I'm joined tonight by the entire board in person, Board Member El Minyawi, Board Member Mann, Board Member Chator, Board Member Krejci, Secretary to the Board Wilson, Vice President Smith, and of course Superintendent Adams and Deputy Superintendent Roaring, and the illustrious Board Clerk Tanya Bowie at the end there, as well as most of the Superintendent's Cabinet is available virtually. This meeting is being live streamed. The instructions to view the meeting are available at albanyschools.org/VOE. If you need to share those with anyone else, I'd appreciate it if you would point them in that direction. We will show the relevant slides and documents for the meeting in the physical screens around the room, as well as in the virtual meeting screen. You can also access them via albanyschools.org/BOE if you prefer to be able to control the slides yourself and look at them in more detail. Those of you joining us in person tonight know that we are meeting with the necessary social distancing in place. We all had our temperature checked on our way into the building and filled out the standard COVID screener. We're all seated at the recommended social distance of 6 feet, and we are and will continue to be wearing a mask unless we need to remove it to be heard clearly while speaking. We do invite you all to come down and join us in person at the Albany School of Humanities or to continue to listen virtually. We do have plenty of seats available, even at this recommended 6-foot social distancing. With that introduction, we invite those of you who choose to join us as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In addition to saying the Pledge of Allegiance, we always focus our meetings by restating the mission of the City School District of Albany, which is to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Superintendent Adams, do you have a report for us?
Thank you so very much. Yes, I do. And good evening, Madam President and members of the board. This week, we celebrated National Administrative Professionals Day on Wednesday, recognizing the vital work performed every day by the members of our City School District of Albany administrative staff. Administrative professionals are frequently the first point of contact for our students and families. They are often the faces of our school and serve as our informal school ambassadors. Administrative professionals are central to the smooth operation of every school and office. They keep us organized and on task, and they know the ins and the outs of their work. They juggle 1,000 tasks at once, navigating through mounds of paperwork and endless emails. Simply put, they get things done. Our administrative professionals are valued members of the district team, and we are grateful to them, and we are very, very pleased to recognize them for all that they do. I would like to thank our partners at Whitney M. Young Jr. Health Center for working with us to offer a COVID-19 vaccination clinic at Albany High School's Brookins Center and Technical Center today. I had the opportunity to visit the site. All was well organized, very thoughtful as to how we were conducting, getting the students in, checking to make sure that they had their paperwork completed. And so all in all, we had 55 students today and 14 staff members participate to receive their first dose of the 2-part Pfizer vaccination. They will be back on May 13th to receive the second dose. And I would also like to thank Stewart Shops for providing a coupon for free ice cream for our students who participated today. We are planning a second clinic for our students age 16 and older on May 20th. Once again, in partnership with Whitney Young. We also look forward to working with our community partners to continue to provide more of these opportunities for our students and staff as we move forward. As more of our students at Albany High are returning to in-person for the final marking period, we are so glad to have our new art and music classrooms ready and waiting for them. The new art and music building was completed during the winter at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is phase 2 of our rebuilding Albany High School construction project. The new building is located right on Washington Avenue. We have not been able to hold an official ceremony to unveil the new building as we did with Phase 1 in February of 2020, just before the pandemic. However, the new art and music space is spectacular. I am so excited for more and more of our students, faculty, and staff to have the opportunity to take advantage of it. Our communications department produced a video highlighting the new fine art spaces earlier this week, and you can check it out at albanyschools.org on our district Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Our students in grades 3 through 8 participated in state ELA exams at all of our elementary and middle schools on Wednesday. The state math exam is coming up during the first week of May. We will have information available at albanyschools.org regarding those test dates, as well as additional dates for state exams later in May and in June. A reminder for our families and all students attending school in person on the designated testing days will take part in the exam. Students not taking an exam will have a day of asynchronous learning from home on each of the testing days. While the state is offering these exams this spring, they will not carry the accountability or graduation requirements that they typically do each year. However, the district believes that these exams can provide important information to help us see where our students are academically. This will allow us to do a better job in planning for the additional supports that may be needed during the summer and the next school year. Please note that next Tuesday, April 27th, will be a regular day of instruction for all district schools. As you may recall, our calendar for this school year originally included a professional development day for faculty and staff on April 27th. However, we did shift that date, that PD day, to the start of the school year to support our COVID-19 reopening plans. So next Tuesday is a regular day of instruction. We will also have more information about the scheduling of our unused snow days later on in the meeting this evening. Earlier this month, we celebrated the selection of Albany High's newest participants in the New York State Education Department's My Brother's Keepers Fellows program, Gideon Goldman and Marcus Treese. Tonight, I would like to highlight the achievement of our current seniors who are completing their year-long experience in this outstanding leadership development program. Robert Glover and Jareem Morris have spent the last year engaging with their peers from across the state. They have participated in opportunities to gain authentic leadership experiences and develop service projects beneficial to their school and our community. They have developed a video as part of their capstone project in the MBK program. I would like to share that video with you tonight as it centers on voting. It matters.
Hi, my name is and I'm here with my very more and we mentioned Prince Ross. Now, the reason why this documentary is to inform the younger generation, especially the Black community, of how to get more into politics and learn exactly what goes into it and how they can be able to make change. Because, especially people in my age range, there's a lot that we can be able to do. It's just that we don't know how to do it. So this document should give you like a good example of what you could possibly do, or even what you could help someone else do, show some support. A lot of planning has gone into this, we've done meets, research on candidates, like just even researching the questions. We've spent like weeks upon weeks of doing this. So, especially with delays as well, like we had to really be on our A game here. But I hope you guys enjoy and be able to at least take something from this document and spark conversation. Without further ado, enjoy.
We're not going to let them stop until every single vote is counted.
It is wrong, deadly wrong, to deny any of your fellow Americans the right to vote in this country.
that we not allow them to continue to tell us the same old story every 4 years. In my administration, we will attack this issue head on.
We lived in Arbor Hill on Lexington Avenue. And then when I was about, I think 5 or 6 years old, we moved to South End, lived in Creighton Stories, which is 3rd Avenue.
Youngest of 5 kids. I have 3 amazing sisters and a brother.
We came from very humble beginnings. I can remember at one point us sleeping 6 to a bed. From that, though, I had a real strong background from my parents of the sense of community and giving back.
I got into politics. It's a weird story. When I went to college, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. That's the only thing I knew. I knew sports. I never read the paper other than the sports section. And one day I had a dream. That was it. And I knew nothing about politics. Like I was giving a speech. And I woke up. I went to 2 days later, I went to my advisor. I think I'm supposed to be in politics.
I think a lot of the things that I did in my life in terms of my academic experiences, I think I did them because someone told me I couldn't. But it wasn't as if I was, sitting at home saying, oh, gee, I'm going to be a lawyer. I didn't think you could be lawyers coming from Lorraine Street.
I'm not coming back here. I didn't see anybody who looked like me being successful.
The first day, like going to Albany City Court and walking in, right? Black, I got my suit on, people thinking you're a defendant. And then you come to realize that everyone that's in the building that's a defendant looks like you. And I'm the only one is in this unique setting.
The first African-American mayor of Bowie receives a special accolade. As we reported yesterday, Mayor Tim Adams has been honored by the University of New Orleans with a 2020 Homer L. Hitt Distinguished Alumni Award.
We had so many African-Americans achieving prominence through the ballot in local offices, right? We've never seen anything like that in the history of our country.
There was no mechanism, no infrastructure built that truly addressed the get out the vote, particularly for people of color at that time.
You have voters who just they've given up on the system. You can't. Politics, it's a game. And the game is this. Elected officials, no matter who they are, the first thing they do is look at who voted. If your community does not turn out to vote, there's 2 messages you send to whoever wins. 1, that group can't unseat me. 2, then you leave that elected official no choice but to focus on those groups of people who did vote, because those groups of people can unelect them if they don't.
Pick any neighborhood, whether it's in Troy, whether it's in Albany or in Schenectady. Walk around in the neighborhood and say, okay, name one thing. Just identify one thing that you want here. How about we get a little park, just right here? Go and ask the city and the elected officials to fund that park. For every one of those people that, the folks that want to take part in this experiment, register to vote. Go register to vote.
Thank everyone for being here today. It's an honor. I'm humbled to stand with you today, and I'm even more pleased because citizen action, the name itself, speaks for itself.
I tell the truth about politics. We all just believe hey, they're gonna help us because we need help. If it worked that way, the neighborhoods wouldn't look the way they look.
And by the way, we're not talking about very large numbers. Let's say you get 300 people that live within this one district to go out and register to vote today. The sheet that they had the year before, the cycle before, reflects there's only 50 votes that come out of here. Now let them see that it's 350, okay? Now let's see how quickly that little park gets put up there for you.
Wow, what a great video. My name is Jereen Morris, as you should already know from my other member, Robert Glover. In this documentary, I learned the power behind voting and how to use my voice while voting. I also was able to talk to a lot of people who went through the process of being voted in, and I learned a lot. I learned that your vote does matter, and that it takes us who vote to actually change the system. And even though it's already broken, we can go in and fix it.
That's why our vote matters. We can change things with our vote. And if we get more people like us into the system, we can not only change the system, but also change our communities as well. And during this documentary, I learned how to edit videos and take clips and other stuff for the documentary. I learned how to use many apps in the documentary process and many softwares. And my biggest takeaway is a vote does matter no matter what.
So this was their capstone project for this year. And there's another little piece that I want to highlight. The sweatshirts that you see the young men wearing, Robert Glover, the first speaker, designed that sweatshirt for the program participants. And they are continuing with that design and sweatshirt through the program. So it's amazing to see where they've come from and how far they've gone. And it's exciting to see where they are going. So thank you for the opportunity to share. It is also my pleasure to welcome Albany High School Principal Jody Comerford to tell us about the great things that are happening at Albany High. Principal Comerford is joined tonight by the valedictorian and salutatorian of the class of 2021, Anovu Ojatigbe Dangerfield, that I know you have had the pleasure of meeting before. She is the first African-American valedictorian, female African-American valedictorian in the history of Albany High, and Kai Cam, our salutatorian. So we are glad that both of you can join us tonight, and thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Adams. Good evening, Superintendent Adams, members of the board, and cabinet. Thank you for the opportunity to feature Albany High School this evening. For the slide. In alignment with our district's vision, our vision at Albany High School is for students, families, staff, and the community to empower all students to graduate as the creators, innovators, civic, and global leaders of the future. It is our mission to provide pathways that meet the academic needs and social emotional needs of students by providing equitable experiences for college, career, and civic readiness. Here with me tonight, we have, as he said, our valedictorian, Onovu, and our salutatorian, Kai, who will be graduates that I can attest will be leaders of our future. We will have them tell you more about their experiences at our high school later in the presentation. On our next slides, we have our school administrative team. As you know, we have 4 academies: the Citizenship, Discovery, Leadership, and Innovation. And these are all supported by our academy principals. And on our next slide, our assistant APs who support 2 academies each. On our demographic slide, our school's population has grown as anticipated with our new construction project that will be able to house over 3,000 students. We have maintained just over 2,600 students since the start of the school year. This is about 300 more students than I've seen in my 9 years at the high school. You can see that our very diverse student population on this slide really is what makes Albany High School what it is. I know that if I hadn't gone to Albany High School and met all of the different groups of students and you know, just really dynamic backgrounds, that I would not be in this chair today. And I really think those experiences of the diversity at our high school is what prepares our students for life after the high. And people always giggle when I say the high. We have 14.5 special education students, 2.3 ELL, and we have 63% economically disadvantaged students. And it is a 50-50 split exactly for our male to female student ratio. One of our major goals is for all of our students to graduate college and career ready. We work daily to ensure our students have supports to do so. Much of this is accomplished through our MTSS teams and staff supports to students. The Academy teamwork has contributed to our graduation rate increasing annually, in addition to our pass rates. Another initiative is to increase student attendance. This is both in person and virtually this year. Our attendance committee serves as kind of the overarching committee, and they closely monitor attendance and work with the Academy teams to support increasing our attendance and our attendance initiatives. ELA and math are also major focus areas in which our administrative team works with our district supervisors and teachers to ensure we continue to increase the literacy and math skills of all of our student subgroups, which assists students in other content areas. Go to the next slide. As we have all been challenged over the past year, we continue to struggle to engage students in a hybrid learning environment. Our Academy teams, teachers, and support staff continue to support and monitor students to increase engagement and continue graduation initiatives. We have been so proud of all of our students and our staff during these challenging times in learning together how to navigate teaching and learning in new ways. A positive of this is we've come a long way in technology, which probably would have taken us years to do previously. And I think both of our students and teachers will be more prepared moving forward with this. With our Q4 phasing in of more students, we will be able to support students who needed more support in person and in-person instruction in our school. So despite the challenges this year, Albany High School has had much success. First, the announcement of our 73% graduation rate was a celebration of the hard work of all of our students and staff. Scheduling has certainly impacted our improvements in creating more equity in our schedule and definitely increasing the rigor of scheduling students. MTSS has created systems to progress monitor students by grade level and by services. And finally, our rebuild project has been so exciting. The new buildings have brought so much excitement for our students and staff with bright and spacious learning environments that is truly impacting the school's culture and climate. We look forward to our school continuing to succeed and have even more accomplishments. And I am hoping to start a new tradition tonight. It always seems to be that Albany High School has their presentation in the spring. And I would like to start a tradition of featuring our top 2 students for our graduating class. So with me today is our valedictorian, Anovu Otatigbe Dangerfield of our 2021 graduating class, and Kai Kim, our salutatorian. And they are here to share out their experiences at Albany High School. Start, Kai?
So hello, my name is Kai, salutatorian at Albany High School. And I would say that one of the few things, or one of the many things that stand out about Albany to me was just how many different people there were, not only just the students, but the teachers as well. I came from a different city. It was much less diverse, I'd definitely say so. Not only in race and color, but also like ideas, and Albany seems much more open and much more just diverse in that way. And I find that the teachers and students are both very accommodating in that way, where we're all ready and willing to collaborate with each other, which I would say greatly contributes to my personal success and all my other peers' success as well, where all of us just have we're competitive in the sense that we all want to succeed ourselves, but we're also have the intent to collaborate with each other as well, where I find is kind of uplifting, really, because we all want to get somewhere in life. We also realize that you can't really get somewhere alone. You need other people around you to support you, and I would definitely attribute my position, the great honor of salutatorian, to that. I would also attribute the Albany's early acceleration. Like in middle school, I took some accelerated courses, which I probably wouldn't have been afforded. And I find that the early immersion in challenges and all of that, including music courses as well. I joined a chorus in 3rd grade, and in 6th grade, I moved to Albany, and it stuck with me. I stay in it now, and I plan to hold on to that all the way into college. So in that sense, Albany's been great in upholding their keeping the students' interests in mind. And like I said, with such a great diversity, there's a great diversity in interests and passions and skills and all of that. And you could see that we have some people who are very successful, not only academically, but also we have state competitors in sports and theater. They nationally recognized, pretty much everything. And I find that very uplifting and hopeful for anyone who might want to come here.
Well done.
Much to Kai's point, I definitely have appreciated the diversity of people, but then also the diversity of courses that I've been able to take throughout the high school. I was always one of those students that was interested in a bunch of different things. So coming in, my issue every single year is being able to just schedule the amount of classes that I'd love to take at the high school. Even having that differentiation between the AP and IB, I think is really important. A lot of schools don't have that at all. It's kind of like one or the other. And so as I was pointing out earlier, I'm one of those people that like so many different things. So the AP was something really appealing to me because I could kind of pick and choose the courses that I wanted to be engaged in, whereas people that like more scheduled or structured things, the IB kind of worked for them. So I appreciated having that opportunity to really be in charge and the architect of my own education. And then I was also able to, much like Kai pointed out, I was involved in the music program since 3rd grade. Coming in to the high school, there's so many different options for chorus or orchestra, for jazz band, all those different things that I've really been able to get involved in. And then the breadth of extracurricular activities. I feel like anything you want, you could find. There was like youth FX for people that were interested in film when I was a freshman and then sophomore. Then there's like journalism, there's sports, there's so many different things that students really can find their niche. I think that's really important in a school environment, to be able to find a community that you can identify with. So that's one of the things that Albany has been really, really great about. And then, like Kai pointed out as well, the faculty, the staff, the students, it just makes it a place where you want to go every day. And just resuming in-person school just this week, I think has been a testament to the collaborative environment of Albany, but then also how much the students just enjoy being there. So.
And that is the conclusion for our presentation. I think there's a slide for questions next, if you have any questions for us.
We typically don't do questions, and so we're just really happy that you could be here, and we thank you for joining us this evening. And this concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us, and I'm sorry we don't have time for questions. We'd love to ask questions, and it would take us the rest of the evening. So instead, we will move on to the operational update.
So as we move on to the district update, as always, we start with our vision, mission, and goals so that we are making sure that we are making those decisions that align with what we think, feel, and believe is in the best interest of our students. And it helps to keep us focused on what we are doing and how we are looking forward and moving forward to accomplishing our goals and making our vision and mission a reality. Tonight, our discussion topics for the district update, we will start with the COVID-19 update. We will have a 2020, our current year fiscal update, and then an update with regard to quarter 4. And this evening for the quarter 4 update, we will hear from both Dr. Cecily Wilson-Turner, who is our Assistant Superintendent over elementary instruction. And we will also hear from Lori McKenna, who is our Assistant Superintendent over secondary instruction. So our COVID update to date, as of the 21st, which was yesterday, we had a total confirmed positive cases of 349. We are looking at on-site individuals testing positive for COVID-19 at 183, and then off-site individuals 166. Through April 21st, we are averaging 1.3 new cases per day. So we keep track of that, and we make sure that we are adhering to the guidance of the Albany County Department of Health, and the contact tracing and quarantine guidelines are in place. We also make sure that we are adhering to the cleaning and sanitizations of our spaces, and that we are wearing our masks. We participate in the hand hygiene, as well as social distancing of 6 feet or more. At this time, I will turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Roaring for the fiscal update for this year.
Thank you, Superintendent Adams. We do have a couple of changes in this next slide that I want to share with you this evening. On this first slide, you'll see we started with anticipated savings from salary and benefits of $11.8 million. And this evening, we have the addition of the planned appropriated fund balance for fiscal 22, which gives us an overall net savings of $4.1 million. Going on to the next, the adjustment here is at the top in terms of state aid impact. With the final adoption of the state budget, we found that our CDTA payments are actually going to be aid eligible, so that $463,000 is no longer part of the equation. So we have an overall total now of 5.48. And our Q3 and Q4 staffing review, we added 74.2 FTEs in Q3. We added 102.8 FTEs in Q4 for a total of 180 FTEs or $3.4 million further prorated salary and benefits this year. 7 of those positions are covered in community schools aid.
So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Wilson-Turner and Lori McKenna to talk about what are some of the updates for the Q4 at the elementary, middle, and high school levels.
Good evening. We are excited to begin planning moving up ceremonies for grades K, and 5th grade, and our 6th grade students who are in elementary did not have a 5th grade ceremony last year. We are looking at, for our 5th and 6th grade ceremonies, an outdoor experience to have a full but abbreviated ceremony. We are still looking at pre-K and K being, what do we call them, reverse parades, so that they have a celebration as well that is on a small scale and that is able to help us follow social distancing guidelines. So more information to come from each school building, but we are trying to streamline that so that each building has a memorable experience to close out the school year.
Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be sharing our end of the year plans with you tonight, and even more excited that we are able to give our students and families in-person celebrations and experiences this year. Our middle school leaders are working with their teams to plan an in-person moving up ceremony for our 8th graders on Friday, June 25th. And similar to Dr. Wilson-Turner and the elementary schools, in order to adhere to the CDC guidelines, we are planning multiple ceremonies so a student can have at least 1 guest and possibly 2. Each ceremony will have up to 200 people, which includes students, staff, and family members per the CDC guidelines. And these moving up ceremonies at O'Neill, Myers, and Hackett will be held outside. In addition to the in-person moving up ceremonies we're also planning an 8th grade in-person dance, super exciting. Because of social distancing and CDC guidelines, the dance again will be limited to 200 students and staff. And unlike previous years, only 8th grade students will be invited to the dance. Pre-COVID, we were able to allow 8th graders to bring a guest to the dance. If there are more than 200 8th graders interested in attending the dance will be scheduled for 2 nights, and 8th graders will be split into 2 different groups. If we only need one night, we will most likely have it on Thursday, June 24th, the night before the 8th grade moving up ceremony, and the dance would be held from 5:30 to 7:30. However, if we do need to split it into 2 dances, because of the numbers, we are tentatively looking at June 17th and 18th, again, 5:30 to 7:30. But regardless of the date, we are planning on an outdoor event. We're hoping for those plans to be submitted to me and then for final approval to the superintendent in mid to late May. So stay tuned for more information. And of course, our planning is also underway for our seniors and end of the year events. Our graduation ceremony will be over the course of 2 days, very similar to last year, June 26th and June 27th, again to the CDC and New York State Department of Health guidelines of up to 200 participants, and we are looking at having this outside as well. Our high school students and principal are also planning an in-person prom. The tentative date that's being discussed is June 19th, and we're looking at holding it outside on the turf field. Senior class day, senior class field day is also being planned for sometime in June, but no final date has been determined. May 3rd is college acceptance day, and students have been invited to send in a selfie in their college gear, and they can also wear their college apparel to school that day if they are in person, or even wear it in the virtual environment. Lawn and window signs have been ordered for all of our high school graduates and will hopefully arrive in the next 2 weeks. Senior superlatives are underway, as well as CDTA sponsored photos of our seniors on CDTA buses throughout the city. So as you can see, in addition to Q4 planning, our schools have been extremely busy planning events to ensure we celebrate our students and make it as normal as possible in an abnormal school year.
Thank you so very much. And at this time, we'll open the floor for questions.
Board colleagues, any questions on this? Board Member Krejci?
Yes, I had a minor question related to your update in the state testing. And you'd mentioned a day of asynchronous learning for virtual students that aren't taking the state test. Is that just at elementary level, or is that at both elementary and middle levels? Or will the middle school students have the live instruction?
Ms. McKenna, did you want to address the middle school?
Yes, that is also for our students in the middle level too. So students who do not take the state assessment will have an asynchronous day.
It seems like there's been some variability throughout the district, and I'm sure it depends on individual buildings and their ability to manage the schedule around and capacity around both the elementary and the middle school level. And I'm hearing that there's a fair variety of different things happening with kids coming in at 11 at elementary in some buildings and some middle school classes being taught synchronously. So it seems like there's a bit of variety happening. Is that what the foundation was of your question?
That my foundation of my question was anecdotally, I witnessed live conversations in a class this morning, and I had heard also other people with middle school children saying that their children were in live classroom environments. So I just wanted to confirm that so that people weren't missing class unnecessarily.
Any additional questions on any of the material presented for the update? Anybody else before Ms. Krejci gets a second one? Go ahead.
And my other question was just, I'm not really familiar with the typical 8th grade celebrations. Do we typically have one party with students from all middle schools mingling together, or does it make more sense in these days of separation to have, rather than to find some other way to separate students if we have them within 200, to just automatically plan a 8th grade celebration for each school?
That's what they are. Each middle school will plan an 8th grade celebration.
Oh, okay, good. I thought we were talking about one celebration for all schools. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wondered if we could just get, and I wish Jody was still here, just a quick update on how we are doing with our return to school in person. I know this is really week one. Is it relatively smooth so far?
I'll start because I had the opportunity to visit the high school and it was very orderly. Students, they're getting acclimated. Yes, we're still telling them pull your mask up over your nose, but we do that with adults too. So there are things, reminding them to be socially distanced, but there were no significant issues that were happening, but just that regular orientation kind of thing. I do applaud the school for holding orientations each day this week with our students, and we know that it will be happening periodically so that they can make sure that those reminders are going out. And I don't know, Ms. McKenna, did you want to add any information?
You summarized it nicely.
I just want to add a note of enthusiasm that, with all of the significant investment that this city has made in our high school facility, it's wonderful to know that that building is being actively used by so many students. I know we've been using it for quite a few for several weeks now, but to have them coming back really in force, knowing what a big investment every property owner in this city has made in that building has been it's really rewarding to know that it's being used. So, anyone else with questions or comments on the? Okay, then let's move on to the next part of our meeting. I think we are just moving on to public comment, which is going to be a little bit complicated tonight, but we are going to do it. We're going to do a good job. Those of you who have come to board meetings know that for many, many years, we have always had a roughly 30-minute public comment period. That's by policy. We set aside up to 30 minutes. We can, if we get more than 30 minutes of public comment, our policy allows us to either extend the length of the public comment period or alternatively to establish a second public comment period later in the meeting. We have a relatively new public comment period that also allows us to accept comments in writing and by voicemail. Comments that are not in person have to be made at least 6 hours prior to the meeting to give us time to collect and verify them as needed. Written comments are limited to 400 words and voicemail and in-person comments to 3 minutes. All comments must include the commenter's name and place of residence. We do not accept any anonymous comments. All of the information about how to do that is on the Addressing the Board information page at albanyschools.org/BOE. We do ask all commenters to keep in mind that information about individual students and specific staff cannot be shared. Not only is that a violation of privacy, but every single student and every single staff member deserves to know that concerns about them will not be aired in public. For that reason, board members who read written comments will pass over or substitute alternative words if individual names or individual descriptions are mentioned. We also ask that you keep in mind that public comment is not the best place to first alert the district to a concern you have. We ask that you share concerns first with relevant staff, such as the teacher or principal. If you feel the concern is not addressed adequately, you may appeal to that person's supervisor up the chain of command, if necessary, to the superintendent. Decisions made by the superintendent may be appealed to the board. Actually, I don't normally say this, but there's a really handy cheat sheet on the Addressing the Board page that tells you how to get up the chain of command. It tells you who to contact when you have a question. So I should throw that into the script because it's a very helpful piece of information. For the second board meeting in a row, we not only have voicemail comments, but we have voicemail comments in Spanish. I know I speak for my board colleagues when I say that I am really excited and pleased that we are starting to receive comments in languages other than English. That really means that people are getting keyed into changes that are happening in the district. We are going to update our policy to reflect our process around this, but since it's a new process, for tonight, like we did last time on Monday, we will play the voicemail so that you can hear them in their original form, and then we will read the English translation. As a small step forward from last time, tonight, we're going to read each comment right after the voicemail, alternating rather than doing them as a batch. So we ask for your patience with this as we work through any technical challenges that should arise. We did receive a total of 6 voicemails. 1 came in after the deadline, and 1 was left anonymously, unfortunately. The one that came in after the deadline will be played and read at our next board meeting on May 6th. And I invite the person who left an anonymous comment to please call us back because unfortunately we cannot accept anonymous comments. With that, I'm going to ask Mr. Baker to start the voicemail, and then Mr. El Minyawi will read the English after each voicemail.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Mireia Hidalgo. Soy residente de Albany. Vivo aquí por la Delaware. Mi número de teléfono es, en particular, no estoy nada de acuerdo que la escuela vaya a ser trasladada a otro lado, el DCS, ya que mi hija, tengo 2 hijas que han ido allí. La área donde es la otra escuela no me parece la área para nada, es un poco peligroso para allá y espero que nos tomen en cuenta todos los padres de familia que no estamos de acuerdo. Si pudieran llamarme, mi número es 7, gracias.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Juan.
Good morning. My name is Maria Hidalgo. I live here by Delaware. I am not in agreement with the school being moved to another location. I have 2 daughters who attend DCS. The other location I am not in favor with at all. It is a bit dangerous over there. I hope that you can take into account all the families that were not in agreement. Thank you.
El número de teléfono es 516. Primeramente, quisiera que mi comentario se tome en cuenta porque soy una madre preocupada por el cambio que ustedes pretenden hacer. Lo primero que me preocupa es la locación en donde van a mover la escuela. Simplemente porque el lugar no es lo que yo espero para mis hijos porque han dicho que ese lugar es muy peligroso. Y quisiera que por lo menos tomen en cuenta la voz de nosotros, los padres, que tomen en cuenta que nosotros como padres tenemos preocupaciones. Y otra de las cosas que nos preocupa, digo no, porque me refiero a mi esposo también, es sobre si los maestros irán con los niños. Estoy muy agradecida con la clase bilingüe, con la oportunidad que le han dado a mis hijos de aprender inglés y español, y no quisiera tenerlo que mover de escuela, pero quisiera que tomen en cuenta la preocupación de nosotros los padres y que tomen en cuenta nuestra voz. Gracias.
Good morning. My name is Wanda Taveras. First of all, I would like my comments to be taken into consideration because I'm a mother who is worried about the change that are proposing for the dual language program. The first thing that concerns me is the location, where they plan to move the program because the location is not what I want for my children. There have been statements made that the location is dangerous. I would like for the district to consider the parents' voices. We as parents are worried. Another thing that worries us, and when I say us, I'm referring to my husband and I, is if the teachers will move with the students. I am very thankful or grateful with the bilingual classes and the opportunity that my children have in learning English and Spanish. I wouldn't want to have to move my children from the program. I would like for the district to consider our worries and concerns. Please take our voices into account.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Sheila Castillo. Tengo 2 niños en Delaware Community School. Estoy llamando porque no estoy de acuerdo que quieran mover el bilingüe a otra escuela. Una, porque donde quieren mover el bilingüe a la otra escuela no es buen lugar. Y yo prefiero 1000 veces que dejen el bilingüe en DCS escuela. Por favor, si tiene preguntas, me puede llamar. Mi número de teléfono es, gracias.
My name is Sheila Castillo. I have 2 children at DCS. I'm calling because I am not in agreement with the moving the dual language program to another location. One, because where they want to move the bilingual program is not a good location, and I prefer 1,000 times that they leave the bilingual program at DCS. Please, if you have any questions, call me. Thank you. Thank you.
Buenos días, soy la madre de Samari de la Cruz. Estoy llamando porque no estoy de acuerdo con el cambio bilingüe que tenemos en nuestra área de la Delaware Community. La verdad que los padres estamos muy de desacuerdo con la decisión que han tomado, prácticamente sin tomarnos en cuenta, porque la verdad que es un programa bilingüe que está ahí desde hace muchos años y ahora no vemos por qué lo van a cambiar, donde los padres estamos muy contentos. No estamos de acuerdo con que lo lleven a otro building, a una área que uno ni siquiera conoce. O sea, estamos muy de desacuerdo con eso. Gracias.
This voicemail was from Marisol Meja, and I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Good afternoon. I am the mother of a child who attends Delaware Community School. I am calling because I am not in agreement with bilingual change at Delaware Community. We as parents are truly in disagreement with the decision that was made practically without taking our concerns into consideration. The truth is that this program has been there for many years, and now we don't see a reason to change it. Being that the parents are very happy with the program, we are not in agreement that they are taking it to another location, to an area that we do not know. We are truly in disagreement with this. Thank you.
We had four written comments that were not transcribed voicemails, and we'll proceed with those now. I should add there were two or three that came in after the deadline that will be read on May 6th as well.
Okay, thank you. To whom this may concern, my son is in kindergarten at Delaware Community School for the dual language program. I strongly disagree with changing the dual language program to another school. If that was the case, I would have had registered my child in a different school when I enrolled him for the school year. On top of that, the area is not an area I would want my child in, which is the purpose of us moving closer to Delaware Community School. That area always seems to have issues, for example, a lot of shootings. I love Delaware Community School and think the dual language program is better off at Delaware Community School and not another school. It is inconvenient for all of us, especially our children. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Jessenia Castillo. Forgive me if I mispronounce that. Okay, the next comment is from community member Renee Bautista. Okay. My daughter will be an incoming pre-K student in the dual language program. We live in the DCS neighborhood, and being able to walk our child to school was the plan. So we are disappointed that the school is moving. But after being able to attend the informational Zoom meeting for parents, I am in full support of the move, if it means the program will expand at the same time. The program itself is much more important than the location, but for parents to believe in it, it seems clear the program must start adding extra classes this year. The next comment is from Rachel Perlman, community member Rachel Perlman. Dear board members, I am writing having heard that modified sports may not be restored in the budget for the next year, and I wanted to encourage you, please, to restore this programming. My kids all play soccer, and my husband, Seth Rosenthal, and I both coach soccer for the Albany Soccer Club, and I have in the past coached for Albany Youth Soccer. Because Seth and I both coach kids who are middle school aged and have one kid of that age, we see how much all these kids look forward to representing their school on the pitch. Because Seth coaches at the U14 level and we both coach at U12, we get to see how much the kids improve in skills, athleticism, and also sportsmanship from the time before they join the modified team to when they have played on the team. Also, youth sports are expensive, and having additional training opportunities offered by the school can serve as an equalizer between players from different economic situations. Furthermore, these kids really give back to the community. My first introduction to the modified team was when my then 5-year-old was coached by a member of the team when he first played for Albany Youth Soccer. It was a great experience and obviously very positive as he still plays soccer today. Albany High School has taken pride in its soccer team in the past, but that great dynamic starts in middle school. Youth soccer players start early, even 7th grade is arguably a bit late. So by not having a school team until high school, a lot of kids will be foreclosed from trying soccer. And soccer is a great game. You cannot win without working together, communicating, and thinking. Soccer players put together their own plays on the pitch. You develop a head for the game that serves you well in other parts of your life. Anyway, I am really hoping that you restore funding and continue to support modified soccer, as well as the other modified sports programs, especially when so many kids were cooped up by the pandemic. Having something that is safe, healthy, and athletic to participate in is really important. Thank you so much for listening. Regards, Rachel Perlman. Okay, the final comment is from community member Antonio Rodriguez. Dear City School District of Albany board members and administrators, I would like to thank Superintendent Adams for raising the subject of talking to students about the verdict of George Floyd's death. Her words were inspirational and heartfelt. During this pandemic, we must not forget the lives lost as a result of COVID-19 and racial injustice, and the hope that your words would help quell the anger felt by most students and adults in our school district and city. Thank you, Board Member Smith, for reading my letter during Monday evening's board meeting. I apologize for the typo. Quote, a relative who resides in another country should have read a relative who resides in another county and school district, end of quote. On another matter, as I watched the school board meeting, I noticed that after every public comment, speaker steps away from the table, the custodial staff wipes the microphone and table area. What happened to the chair? Doesn't it need to be wiped down as well? I'm not saying that people are germy or sick, but good cleaning should cover all areas that someone has come in contact with. If that is what the City School District of Albany calls cleaning and disinfecting, God help students and staff, then custodial staff should take Cleaning and Disinfection 101. Stay healthy and safe. Antonio Rodriguez.
In addition, we have 2 people signed up for in-person comments, so I'm going to ask Lauren Clemens and Jennifer Fitzpatrick to come and select a microphone while I read the public comment statement. If I can find the public comment statement. When I recognize you, please state your name and city of residence. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Ms. Wilson, our board secretary, will give you a 1-minute notice and a 10-second notice, and I will notify you if your time has expired. Please do look up occasionally and make sure that you're paying attention to the notices. If she flashes them as wildly as she can, but it's helpful if you look up every once in a while so you're not surprised. Also, please note that our policy is to not respond during the public comment period. If you need a response, please contact us by email, phone, or postal mail. I think almost everyone in this room has done that at some point in the last 6 months and has certainly gotten a response within a couple of days. Our contact information is available at albanyschools.org/BOE, and I will respond on behalf of the board. Dr. Clemens, when you're ready.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Lauren Clemens. I'm a resident of Albany. I want to begin by recognizing the tremendous effort that has gone into planning for the future of Albany's dual language program, which is all the more remarkable against the backdrop of an intensely difficult year and an uncertain future. The dual language community came together to ask for assurance that moving our program into a building with older students would be safe. We've heard about plans for multiple entrances, separated wings for different ages, different lunchrooms, and staggered arrival times. We asked what the dual language program would gain, especially in light of the tremendous upheaval that such a move would cause. We talked about the potential for strengthening the connection between elementary and high school Spanish. We've seen plans to increase access for Spanish-speaking parents to school building staff. We've learned about a vision to create a culturally rich language learning environment that centers not only English, but also Spanish and the other languages that students speak at home. Finally, we talked about expanding the program in a new location, which is not possible in our current building and which has been a long-term goal for the program. We asked for detailed programmatic plans for expansion, and administrators charted different plans for growth and sought teacher and parent input on those plans. We asked you to be certain that expansion was possible in the proposed location, and we were provided with concrete information about projected enrollment and building capacity. We asked you not to move us without the financial resources to make our move a success, and we've seen a budget that includes 7 additional bilingual teachers to be hired over the next 5 years, including 2 for the start of the 2021-2022 school year, as well as an increase in services for both learners of Spanish as a second language, Spanish language academic intervention services, and the addition of a building administrator and a bilingual coach. This amounts to a financial commitment of more than $500,000 in the first year alone. Oh, and we asked you to be able to receive comments from members of the community in languages other than English, and you've managed that as well. You've heard from the cautiously optimistic and the gravely concerned, families who are completely committed and parents with one foot out the door. We've also heard from hopeful waitlisted parents. As I said in the first public comment I made on behalf of the Dual Language Parent Committee, there is not a single dual language parent perspective. There is not one single Spanish-speaking parent perspective, nor one single English-speaking parent perspective. But our diverse experiences and perspectives make us stronger, and we have the potential to build a tremendous future for our children. Thank you for helping us assemble the tools that we need to make that happen. Han escuchado de los padres optimistas y los padres preocupados, las familias que están completamente comprometidas y los padres que dicen que se irán, que se movan. También hemos escuchado de padres esperanzados en la lista de espera. La primera vez que hablé en nombre del Comité de Padres de la Programa Bilingüe Bidireccional, dije que no hay una sola opinión de los padres sobre la propuesta. No hay una sola perspectiva de los hispanohablantes, no hay solo una perspectiva de los angloparlantes. Muchos padres tienen sentimientos encontrados. Nuestras experiencias diferentes y perspectivas diferentes nos hacen más fuertes y tenemos el potencial de construir un futuro tremendo para nuestros hijos. Gracias.
Thank you very much. I should make clear that while we are still establishing a clear policy, our intention is to allow 3 minutes for the English and 3 minutes for the language other than English so that it still stays fair. So you went over 3 minutes, which was perfect because you did it in 2 languages. You are all good. Thank you very much. Ms. Fitzpatrick, when you're ready.
So over the last couple months, I've regularly attended the board.
Can I ask you to come closer to the microphone? Otherwise, it doesn't end up on the tape.
So over the last couple months, I've regularly attended the board meetings, and I've been here to petition for in-person learning. I know there are families out there who are not comfortable sending their children back to school, not now, and they likely won't be in the fall. What I'm here to discuss tonight is communication. Many of these families won't send their children back until they know it is safe. How will they know? Through communication, something that the administration does very poorly. Good communication equals trust. We need to trust you to feel comfortable coming back. How can we trust that you are giving us accurate information when almost every email we receive has a correction email to follow within minutes? How can we trust in the plans that you share when there are no details, just announcements? We aren't provided details or reasons until we raise our voices. We need plans that are thoughtful, thought out, make sense, and are communicated well. We need to trust that you are hiring the right people back. Are you listening to the teachers? Many that I have talked to don't feel you are. These teachers know our students and what we will need to get them back on track. We need you to communicate with the teachers. Are you promoting the positive steps you are taking to make things safe? Why wasn't there more effort to promote the amazing opportunity offered to students to get vaccines? Why weren't we sharing that information with the broader community? Please consider what you are sending out to the public. We want to support you and we are here to help, but we can't when we are not given accurate information. We need to trust you. The communication needs to be better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That ends our public comment period for tonight. Again, board members always ask me to stress that we find hearing from our community so very valuable. Our contact information for both public comment and for routine correspondence is at albanyschools.org/BOE. We now move to the part of our meeting we call routine consent. During this portion of the meeting, we approve routine matters for the district. These include items like contracts, personnel matters, and the like. Each board member reviews each item carefully, but we vote on them as a group with no discussion. That allows us to use our meeting time more efficiently. Nonetheless, each board member has the option to set aside any routine consent item in order to require a separate discussion and a separate vote on that item. With that introduction, I will now entertain a motion to adopt the routine consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Board Member Smith, second. Board Member Mann. Are there any set-asides? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the routine consent agenda in its entirety? Board Member Krejci, did you care to vote for routine consent? That is unanimous. Excellent. We do have a series of additional actions after routine consent tonight. The first one is one that we've heard some public comment about tonight, and we have heard public comment on for many board meetings now, and that is the Albany International Center and the dual language program. Superintendent Adams, I know we've had a lot of discussion about them. Is there anything new that you needed to share about either the AIC relocation or the dual language relocation and expansion?
I think I can address with regard to AIC. There was a question at the last board meeting with regard to the $2 million that was the full cost of the program, and then in the budget you were able to see the $1.7 million, and the difference is that is the total cost of the program, the $2.1 million. The 1.7 is what is remaining after what we have already put in place this year that we will carry over to next year, and the 1.7 would be part of our additional funding plans.
So besides that, I know that we're all very familiar with the Albany International Center model. The slides are there. I don't think we should use our meeting time to go over them again unless anybody really wants to, since they haven't changed. But essentially, we know that it is a K-12 AIC model, which is significantly new for us, right? We've never had K-5 AIC before to be housed at the Edmund O'Neill Middle School of Excellence building. So I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the recommendation from staff to move and expand this program. Board Member Mann, second by Board Member Smith. All in favor of adopting the AIC recommendation? That is unanimous. Congratulations to the AIC. I cannot wait to see how much it benefits our K-5 students. It's going to be terrific. The second action is on the dual language program. We have probably had spent more board meeting time on this in the last 2 to 3 weeks than on any other single topic besides the budget. I also note that the desire for a dual language expansion to solidify the program and to expand it so that it would be more stable over the long haul has been something that's been sought for many years. One of the benefits for me personally of having gone through this over the last couple of weeks is have the opportunity to interact with Melanie Porres, who was a former board member and who was also one of the instrumental leaders that was involved in founding the dual language program. I got a text from Ms. Porres earlier today. She unfortunately cannot be here because she has a former commitment, but she did want to just share with us how happy she is and how pleased she is to see this program that she sunk so much of her time and energy into and her professional career into really moving forward in the right direction. So that's just really very nice to be able to see that all coming together. So with that, who would like to make a motion to adopt the recommendation? Dr. Chatoor, second by Board Member Wilson. I guess I should open is there any discussion? Do we have any questions on this before we adopt it? Okay, I see 3 hands. We're going to start with Board Member Krejci, Wilson, and El-Miniawi.
I also just wanted to express my sheer pleasure and excitement at the thought of expanding this program to 2 classes per grade. But I do also want to share that since the last meeting, when I expressed a lot of excitement about the administration's prospect to expand the program a little bit faster by adding classes at the kindergarten and 1st grade level, since then I have spoken to a couple of parents and one teacher that did express concern that bringing in a whole new class at the 1st grade could make it more difficult for that cohort of 1st grade students to learn the language and make it a little more difficult for the community to coalesce. So I would say Cabinet can use its best judgment and decide whether to expand at the pre-K and K levels or the K and 1st grade levels. Either way, I'm really excited about this program and I think it's going to be fantastic. So thank you.
Board Member Wilson.
Hello? Okay, sorry, I couldn't tell if it was on. Just to sort of segue from Board Member Krejci, I'm ecstatic that this process sort of emerged where we naturally started to accept public comments in other languages and have the capacity to translate them as part of this ongoing dialogue, as well as prolonging it for the benefit of people understanding better. And I know we've had evolution of people having all types of feelings and thoughts about it, but through going deeper and having forums that many people have come to find out what our real plans are and our aspiration for the program, and hopefully concerns regarding expansion and location can be assuaded as people continue to dialogue with us.
Board Member Amaniawi.
I wanted to commend the administration on this move. This is one of the most popular programs we have, the dual language program. It highlights Albany's rich culture, and I think that's one of the best things that this board can do. I also think that moving the program and expanding the program to North Lark Street will really actually enrich that neighborhood even more. So I'm really excited to see this, and kudos to all that worked so hard to do this. Thank you.
Board Member Chatoor.
Today we heard from 2 high school seniors about all the wonderful opportunities they've had in the district. And I'm so glad that we had these 2 actions, expanding the EIC to a K-12 model, as well as expanding the dual program, because there are lots of families who subscribe to these non-traditional modes of education and benefit from it. And the fact that we can offer it, and not just offer it, but actually expand it and make it grow. I'm just glad to be part of this board that has had the opportunity and the privilege to be able to do that. Can't wait to hear what more great things coming from these kids down the road.
Board Member Smith.
Thank you, and I share my colleagues' sentiments here. I wanted to just add a note of thanks to Superintendent and Cabinet for bringing this forth. Also to specifically about the expansion. Also want to thank the DCS community very much for voicing their opinions and thoughts, which I can assure you have been taken into account. I know some of those comments we were just getting tonight from folks from particular communities, but we had heard some of those same ones before. But we wanted to say we did take all of that into account. And that is not to say that we are ignoring violence in our community. And I must add that it is not in one particular area of our city. It is all over our city and cities across this country and state. So it is something that we're all dealing with and we all have to face. And I would just say specifically, I know that our superintendent and cabinet are working always and with our schools to make sure that our families feel safe, understand what we're doing to keep you safe and your children safe, and then we will always and always keep trying to do that every single moment of the day. Your children are too precious to us. We care and love each one of them, and we want, just like the teenagers, the seniors you saw tonight, we want them to have that same experience and opportunity. And so please, please work with us, continue to voice your concerns. Please continue to hold us accountable. We will do our very best to keep you apprised of our safety for our youngsters and to keep everyone, students, teachers, adults, everyone alike, as safe as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to just ask, I don't know if this is a question or just a follow-on comment from what Board Member Krejci said about whether we're going to go pre-KK or K1. I absolutely leave it at the expertise of the district administrators who are going to be working on that. I will just stress, as I did last board meeting, I think our #1 priority has to be to have completely full sections. Right, this is a really expensive investment, right? We are investing in this program and we need to make sure that that investment is well spent. So if we can have pre-KK sections that are guaranteed to be full, then we should do that. If we can do K1 sections that are guaranteed to be full, then we can consider that. But if we can't guarantee that those K1 sections are full, then I would have to really question whether that is a sensible approach. So that is my, I absolutely know that district administration has many things that they're juggling, but in terms of the return on the investment, knowing that those sections are going to be full is probably my highest priority in a time when ultimately things are not great for the district fiscally, right? I mean, we know that we're in a very good place with the one-time federal money and our belief that the state is going to do the right thing with the fully founding of foundation over the next 2 years, but it is a really, those are, the first one is a short-term thing and the second one is no guarantee, right? So if those two things, we're just not flush. So this is a significant investment that needs to be spent wisely. But I don't want to take that mundane point away from the really positive feelings that we all have about the way this is going to play out as a benefit for our Spanish language learners, for our English language learners, and from our students who have interrupted formal education who will be benefiting at the AIC. I just think the way those three programs are going to interact together is going to be, and I know this is sort of a jargony term, but it's going to be synergistic. It truly is going to be better than each of them operating independently, having them together. So I know that was sort of 7 board member comments. Superintendent Adams, I don't know if you had anything to add or wanted to share, or if we should just go ahead and vote, because we have not yet actually voted. So let me know if you want to say some words or we can vote. She says you said it all.
We do not have anything else to add.
Excellent. All the words have been said. All in favor of adopting the expansion and movement for dual language program? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. That moves us on to a discussion action of the 2020-21 calendar, which is going to go down in history as the most modified calendar ever to happen in the history of all the City School District of Albany. Superintendent Adams.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. I'll start with the brief introduction, and then Mrs. Bechtel and Mr. Petrin, who co-chair the calendar committee, if they have additional information to add, they can, and then we can present the recommendation. So we were charged with looking at what are the benefits, if you will, and the outcomes of splitting the not professional development day, but splitting the time that students would be off, because when we came to you, the dilemma was that typically we do not have students in class, in session, in person when we have an election. And that was on our fault that we did not catch that as we were reviewing the calendar. And so with that, we needed to come up with some options. And the option that came forward was to move one of the unused snow days from the 27th, moving it forward. That was one of the options, that it to the 18th, which is the vote day, and then students would have 2 consecutive days. After surveying a small group and getting some feedback, we brought back to the board that it would be to flip the 17th, which was an unused snow day, to the 18th, and then have students attend school on Monday, off on Tuesday, which would be the election day, and then return on Wednesday. And typically we do not do that because that interrupts the instruction, and we do not feel that that is beneficial for our students. And so the committee we were charged with going back to the committee and taking it to a larger group and then bringing back another recommendation. And so in our thought process, we started to look at the number of days in which we are required to have for instruction, which we have 180 instructional days. We know that we schedule 184 contractual days for teachers. And with that, we were still in alignment with our 4 professional development days that we've already had. And also, we are able to utilize those days beyond the 180 without negative consequences. We could absolutely determine that one of those days could be a professional development day. So now, with that in mind, we were able to survey and think about what are some of the things at the end of the year as we are moving forward with all of the plans that need to happen, the ways in which we need to incorporate and get feedback from our families and put together those plans moving forward, especially with the use of the additional federal funds that we have. It could provide us an opportunity to look and use that professional development wisely as we plan for the future, as well as getting information with regard to our teachers. What are some of those final things that they may need, resources that they may need training on, so that we can be prepared to open in the fall. With that, we looked at, in combination with contacting our BOCES district superintendent and speaking with Mr. Baker with regard to the accountability piece. There are no negative consequences for us to make May 18th a professional development day. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Bechtel, and I believe we will have the slide up in just a moment.
Thank you, Superintendent and Board of Education. I'm happy to be here to speak about calendar, as I always am. We did come up with a recommendation. We determined that we could modify the contractual instructional days for 2021 to support an additional professional development day on Tuesday, May 18th. And then we would maintain the unused snow day distribution in calendar that was approved last year. And those days are May 17th, May 27th, and May 28th. The full committee fully supports this recommendation.
Can I get a motion to adopt the recommendation? Board Member Wilson, a second, Board Member Mann. Any comments, questions, or other on this? Board Member Krejci.
Just as a member of the calendar committee, I was part of the calendar committee meeting earlier this week that discussed this, and I think working it out this way is going to be the least problematic for our families and our students, and I think it also presents a unique opportunity for our teachers as they adjust to many of them teaching virtual and live students simultaneously, and adjust to having students back in the classroom with the new social distancing and other requirements. I think this is going to be a good opportunity for them to develop some new skills in this new time.
Any further comments or questions? All in favor of adopting the modified calendar as presented? That is unanimous. And that brings us now to the major topic for the night. This is the discussion and ultimately action on the budget for 21-22. Superintendent Adams.
Good evening again. We would like to start. There was an additional question. We had two questions that we needed to follow up on. And so this, I'm going to start with the music recommendation so that we can examine that, and then we'll get into the actual budget presentation. And so the question that we were asked to go back and explore would be the ability to build in third grade music. And so I will go ahead and do the spoiler alert and then allow Mrs. Bechtel to go through the slide and explain what would be possible for us and what this recommendation is. And so in looking over the program and looking over our FTEs, we are able to add an additional 2 FTEs so that we would not only maintain the 30 FTEs from the 19-20 beginning of the school year, we would be able to start with those 30, but in addition, we will add 2 FTEs. And so at this time, if we could share the slide for the music recommendation, I will have Mrs. Bechtel explain what that looks like.
Thank you again, Superintendent and Board of Education. As stated, we would restore staffing to the 2019-2020 levels, and then also in addition, expand for new programming and intervention. Just to give a history of where we've been in the budget process, we did restore 1.4 FTEs in March, and that was a 1.0 strings teacher, 0.4 band. We have proposed a 1.0 virtual academy music teacher that would sit in the ARPA Sarasa funds. 0.4 is proposed for AIC for general music opportunities. That is new programming. 1.6 is proposed or was proposed on 419 for the strings division of the music department. As stated, because of the way the seniority and tenure works for K-12 music teachers, it's really one bucket, and yet there are 3 different areas of expertise for music teachers. We unfortunately had cut the strings really were suffered from that. And so we're really happy to propose that 1.6 on Monday to restore the strings department almost fully. And then the additional 2 FTEs that we're proposing tonight is to restore the string staff to its full complement, restore the 3rd grade strings, and support additional lessons. It'll allow us the opportunity to support those additional lessons at grades 4, 5, and 6, really to ameliorate the impact of pandemic on instrumental music instruction. Those students have really had perhaps less direct in-person, one-on-one or small group instruction for instrumental music. So we really could use and need this support to help with those efforts. So I just wanted to point out that the total FTEs in 2019-2020 were 30, and what is proposed is that the total FTEs for 21-22 would be 32.
So at this time, I'll turn it over to Deputy Superintendent Roaring so that she can take us through the budget update.
Thank you, Superintendent Adams. Good evening, Board of Education. I am pleased to be here on the night we hope to adopt our budget for 21-22. As always, we start with our guiding principles, and these really are at the core of the review we've done this year and what we've prioritized to bring to the board for our proposed budget. This year, we were excited to have the opportunity to convene a community budget committee. One of the charges of that committee was to bring to us priorities that they were hearing in the community in terms of what we needed to be doing for our children post-pandemic. Some of their priorities included opportunities for learning acceleration, equity as a priority, closing our learning gaps, and investing in our social emotional learning for our students, focusing on mental health and wellness, and also the emotional toll that it took on our students this year. And then finally, to bring back both the Albany International Center and the Tony Clements Center for Education as standalone programs in their own buildings. We have a couple of dates on the calendar I'd like to bring to your attention as well. We have our budget hearing coming up on May 6th. We will have another virtual community budget presentation on May 11th, and we are voting on May 18th. As a reminder, we are returning to in-person voting this year. When we started our 2021 budget, we had an adopted budget of $261.5 million. In September, we were compelled to make reductions in the anticipation of reduced state aid. Therefore, the reductions in salary and benefits, as well as reductions across supplies, equipment, contract services, and other compensation, with the restoration of 6.5 positions on October 1st, took us to an adjusted budget of $246.8 million. Looking at our rollover budget presented in January, we had a reduced budget of $246.8. From there, we began building the rollover for 21-22. Our health insurance and contractual salary increase for the staff we had present with us in January of 2021 is an almost $6 million increase. We restored summer school to the general fund. It had been paid previously by grants in the summer of 2020. We are recognizing an increase in our debt service, which is largely attributable to our short-term borrowing. Not only the continuation and the construction at Albany High, but also bringing on board this spring the North Albany Middle School project and our 5-year plan. Lastly, we had some other adjustments in supplies, equipment, contract services, and other compensation areas for a total add of $1.7 million, taking us to $256.5 million. Since we initially brought forward our rollover budget for 21-22, we've had some adjustments that needed to be made. Originally, the governor's proposed budget included a charter school tuition rate decrease, but that was predicated upon no additional federal aid. With the receipt of that additional federal aid, we will have a tuition rate increase next year, as well as a grade level expansion at Green Tech for a total increase of $1.6 million. Additionally, we have returned 180 positions in quarter 3 and quarter 4, Annualizing the salary and benefits for those individuals is an add of $12.7 million. We are shifting summer school and after-school tutoring to our federal funds. There are specific requirements in those funds in terms of how they're used. And then we had some other adjustments in rate increases that were higher than originally anticipated for a total adjusted budget of $270.26 million. So what's in this budget? We are maintaining all of our current staffing and programs. We have the restoration of the building-based Albany International Center, which will be located at 50 North Lark, the restoration of the Tony Clement Center for Education at 395 Elk. We're moving our elementary 6th grade to middle school and establishing that permanent feeder pattern for the 22-23 school year. Moving O'Neill 8th grade over to North Albany Middle School, restoring 9th grade boys and girls basketball, 9th grade baseball, and modified 9 boys soccer, as well as providing additional social emotional supports for our students and additional instructional intervention positions to support and accelerate learning. Here is our staffing ratios over time, and you will see that with the addition of those positions, we are decreasing our ratio of staff to students going into the 21-22 school year. Our projected enrollment is coming from our demographics report that we received this month. Taking a closer look at our state aid this year, you'll see at the top the increase in foundation aid of $14.1 million. It's important to note that that includes the restoration of $4.5 million in pandemic aid adjustment that we incurred as part of the state's 2021 budget. So that $9.5 million increase is really an increase over 2 years. There are other aid categories where we saw some increase, including charter school transition aid, private excess cost aid, building aid, and BOCES special service aid. We have made an adjustment to our anticipated transportation aid. That core category is based on actual expense. And with our modified programming this year, we do not anticipate to expend our full budget for transportation. We have an overall increase in state aid of $14 million. So looking at the overall proposed revenue for the 21-22 school year, we have a slight increase in our local revenue, which is attributable to a proposed 0.95% tax levy increase. This was a conversation the board had at our last meeting, and it was heard clearly that it was important to keep that under 1%. So that is our proposal tonight. We are recognizing also a $500,000 reduction in our pilot payments for next year. The state aid increase of $14 million, again, restoring $4.5 million in pandemic aid. And then looking at the federal aid adjustments, that is largely attributable to the loss of the one-time CARES Act funds that were $4.5 million. We are also realizing a reduction in our Medicaid reimbursement of $1.2 million. Lastly, looking at our other category, this includes use and service fees, interest earnings, and some of our use of appropriated fund balance, as well as restricted reserves. We have a slight decrease in this category overall, but I do want to highlight it includes the planned use of $2.5 million in appropriated fund balance and $600,000 in restricted reserves. These two are one-time funds for a year-over-year change of $8.6 million. Taking a look at our tax levy history, which should be over 6 years, not 5. We started out with 0 for the first 2 years. We went to 1.3 in 18-19, just under 2% in 19-20 and 2021. And then this year, the proposed tax levy increase is just under 1%. This takes our 6-year average to 1.04%. I do want to note that for the last 8 years, the district has kept the tax levy below 2%. Looking at our total revenue of $270.2 million from a different lens, $267 million of that is recurring revenue, and $3.1 million of that is one-time revenue. Some of the additional proposals that we've brought forward during the budget development process include completing the expansion of the Albany International Center to serve K-12 students, expanding the dual language program, restoring 3rd grade instrumental music, enhanced summer school and after-school programming, investing in digital tools to support and accelerate student learning, making one-time investments both in hardware for technology hardware and our HVAC and ventilation system enhancements. Looking at our Plan A, You'll see a number of those items reflected here, including the expansion of the dual language program at just under $600,000. As the superintendent explained previously, we have the additional staff for the AIC at $1.7 million. You'll see the $6 million investment plan in operation and supports in our HVAC and ventilation system, and the technology investment there reflects $2.5 million in one-time hardware expense, for a total of $22.29 million. Similarly, here in Plan B, there are some additional positions in learning acceleration and safety and security, which takes our total here for $24.7 million. We received we will be receiving two one-time federal funds. The first one is the SRISA funds. These were approved in December. The total allocation shown on our state aid run earlier this month is $13.5 million. These funds are able to be used in the 21-22 and 22-23 school years. Some of the things that these funds may be used for include accelerated learning, upgrading ventilation systems, instructional technology, and social emotional supports for our students. The second funding source is the ARP funds that were approved in March. These two are one-time federal funds. There is a learning loss grant set aside prescribed by the state of $1.27 million. So that leaves a remaining balance of $31.56 million that can be used for other items, including summer learning, extending our school year, comprehensive after-school programs, accelerated learning, and protecting the health and safety of our students and staff. We are continuing to share with you multi-year revenue scenarios. This does assume the 0.95% tax levy increase proposed for fiscal year 22. It also assumes a 1% tax levy increase for the next 3 years, so fiscal 23, 24, and 25. It assumes a 3% growth in foundation aid each year. It reflects the loss of the CARES fund. And it assumes use of appropriated fund balance at $2.5 million for fiscal 21-22, $2 million in fiscal 23 and 24, and then $3 million in fiscal 25. You'll see overall what that looks like in terms of a revenue projection for us, highlighting this year's proposed revenue of $270.26 million, and we grow to 284.9 under this scenario. Below that, you'll see a reflection of the federal one-time funds and the thought of how they may be used at this particular point in time. The 13.5 SRISA funds does include a $2.5 million one-time investment in technology hardware. And then you'll see the ARP funds spread out over the 3 years we are able to spend those dollars. Looking at the next scenario, the difference in this particular scenario is strictly related to foundation aid. This assumes full funding in foundation aid, so an additional $25.9 million between fiscal 22-23 and 23-24. All other assumptions remain the same. It is important to note that while there was fully funding phase-in proposed in the state budget, that we must have appropriations each year to support that. Looking at our 21-22 proposed budget, our adjusted rollover is that $270.26 million, supported by the revenue proposal, including a 0.95% tax levy increase, for a total proposed budget of that $270.26 million. With board approval, this budget proposal will go to the voters on May 18th. And I am happy to take questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. It's nice to finally feel like we're at this point in the road. The road doesn't end until we get through till May 18th, but it's a very important point in the road here today. Before we go on to questions about the budget presentation, I think we should just make sure that we're all clear on the music presentation. Does anybody have any questions on music? Board Member Chatoor.
So the slide mentions specifically third grade string, but later on the budget we talk about third grade instrumental. I just want to make sure that band is also included in there, because we talked about all instruments last time.
And so all that relates to is the breakdown of the FTEs. If you remember how we talked about last time that it could be a 0.2 here, a 0.3 there, it would be included. So it just, in those two positions, just right now not able to say that 0.2 would be this and 0.6 would be this. It just falls into that those two positions.
And that's, so where it says restore third grade strings on the music slide, that really should say restore third grade instrumental. So it's going to include both strings and instrumental. Yes. Okay, that's an important distinction. Board Member Krejci?
It was pretty much the same question, confirming that every third grader at every elementary school can choose woodwind, brass, or string. That there's going to be teachers for any instrument at all elementary schools. I
think there's a little more discussion with regard to the band instruments. That may be a little bit more of a discussion that we have to have, but we are committed to having that instrumental component for third grade.
And I will say that in my experience, it has never been a complete free choice. There's always been some limitations on instruments. So sometimes people who might have to preference 3 choices and might preference violin and flute, but eventually
I understand that if everybody, I understand if everybody at Pine Hills chooses the oboe, we don't have 50 oboes. I understand that, but I'm asking, will the full spectrum of instruments and teachers for those instruments be available as in let's say 2019, or will there be some schools where you can only play a string instrument, or some schools where there's no woodwind or no brass available for lack of teachers? That's what I'm trying to ask.
So the way I have to answer that is when you look at if there is a school that has a higher request for a particular instrument, then we start moving things around, and we'd have to balance that out. So we would have to look at what those requests are and then meet those needs.
But it wouldn't be a sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? A distinct thing where like it's such and such a school, we only do third grade strings, we don't do third grade band. It would just be a matter of making it work. Is it, or am I misunderstanding?
Yes, that makes sense. I'm going to defer to Mrs. Bechtel in that we have to look at what the requests are, and then we have to see how we accommodate that. So I cannot tell you that absolutely it would be, no, you cannot do this instrument. I can't say that because we have to see what the requests are that come in from the students and the families.
I want to make sure that every school,
I think
at least has the same.
Trying to get a word in edgewise. Why don't we let her have a chance, and then we'll see where we're at.
Mrs. Beckman?
I think we're really concentrating on building our recruiting processes, especially given the COVID year. And we want to reach out to all children. We are not interested in inequities. We are, however, interested in looking at the band instruments, and the littlest kids struggle, I think, sometimes with the not necessarily the woodwinds, but the brass instruments. And so as a department, as a content area, we want to explore how we want to introduce at the third grade level. The strings instruments, of course, are always, we see 3-year-olds playing violin, and that's perfectly appropriate. Sometimes the brass instruments are a little bit more of a challenge.
And so even with those challenges, I just want to make sure that you understand it's not an absolute no. We have to see what the requests are that come in so that we can work to accommodate that.
So let's ask the question a different way, and maybe we need to come back to this because this does not impact our vote on the budget tonight, right? Recall that these funds are going to come through the ARP process or the SRISA process so that they are not part of the general fund. Nonetheless, I do think that the board wants to be really clear. Is every school going to offer both wind and string to third graders, incoming third graders, to have them be one of the things that they have in front of them, and then evaluate them based on the choices, as I hear you saying. And I'm not sure we want to continue this further tonight because I understand you guys are still trying to develop your plan. And I will say that from my perspective, and I still have not done my homework on this topic because I realized that there's not just one, but 2 reports from the music equity task force that we all really should go back and listen to. My driving, this is me, Ann, not me speaking as board president for all of you, but as me, I believe our number one driving force is getting more kids engaged in music at a high level. And if the music department comes together and says, we think this is the way to approach that, I would be open to that. That is my personal opinion. So I would like, if people are willing, to suggest that the staff have a little more time to bring this. We know we're getting the FTEs, like we've committed to the FTEs, which is a really critical factor, so that there is staff available to do the work. How that work is to be done, I think maybe needs a little more time, and I don't want to get caught up in fighting about this here. Does that seem reasonable as an approach?
Very reasonable.
All right, so then I think we're ready to move off of music and move on to the budget proper. I will point out that we have seen these almost exact slides now twice this week, right? They're basically identical to the ones we saw on Monday. We had a fairly extended conversation on Monday. Does anybody have any additional questions or comments? Board Member Wilson.
Thank you. So forgive me, I'm looking over a couple of slides, so I'll just start with, this appears to be page 15, slide 15, where we outline Plan A and identified learning acceleration, virtual academy, and safety and I apologize, health and wellness. So, and these are across both slides, and they more or less are like similar numbers with some adjustments and emphasis in different places. So I just wanted to ask, you know, naturally these are based on, they appear to be sourced primarily from the Sarissa funds and ARP funds. So we're making that investment to accelerate learning. And the social emotional supports are $132,000. I know at this point we can vote on a budget and work to allocate line items and things, but I just wanted to understand more about that investment in particular for the social emotional supports.
Deputy Superintendent. They're fighting it out over there.
So specifically, if you were speaking about the specific programs, if you remember, we spoke about using Second Step, which is what we do at the elementary level, and then using Ruler at the secondary level. Those are the two that we're starting with. And then we have plans to continue that growth in that area to ensure that we are meeting the social emotional needs of our students, because we know COVID-19 has had an impact on that and providing the opportunities for students to be able to reach out. And so that's where you see the component that aligns with that too, with the additional staff with regard to behavioral specialists, with our social workers, et cetera. We will be looking at those particular positions that align with that.
Deputy Superintendent Roy.
I just wanted to highlight the fact that we have brought back a number of behavior specialists and social workers as part of our Q3 and Q4. So those are embedded in the adjusted rollover, and that is why you see a smaller number in that particular category when you get to the back end of the presentation.
No, it's just contextual, so I appreciate it. And also just another question about, well, I'll wait another turn.
If you wouldn't mind waiting to another turn, but before we move on to this, I just wanted to point out that this is our intention at this time of what we're calling Plan A. However, part of the ARP process will be in a community involvement process, and so there will be some opportunity to revise and revisit and focus and prioritize. We have not committed every single dollar of all of those funds. We have had fairly significant input from our community with the Community Budget Committee and the public comment we've gotten on the budget this year, so we've already absorbed a lot of that in setting these priorities, but there's still plenty of time for further renovations, that's not the right word, but further adjustments as we move through that next community process. And we're waiting a little bit to get the clear regulations, because while the bill is clear that there has to be a community process, no regulations have ensued, and so we want to make sure that whatever we do is in alignment with the regulations that will come forward. Okay, somebody else have a first question before Ms. Wilson has her second? Ms. Wilson.
Just more of an insight into extended school year. I know in past attempts, pre-COVID, naturally, so it's totally different. There were issues with attendance. Is this a different reiteration of extended school year, or are we approaching it differently?
I will start, and then I will ask that Dr. Wilson-Turner and Ms. McKenna add on to it. One of the things that we have clearly heard from our parents is what's going to happen with regard to accelerating the learning. In other terms, what people coin as learning loss. and how are we continuing to close the gaps. And so, yes, in the past, there have been concerns with regard to attendance. We see a heightened sense of students and families wanting students to engage in, extended programs and things like that, so that academically we can make sure that we are closing some of those gaps. We're also looking at unique ways of delivering instruction. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Wilson-Turner and then Ms. McKenna.
I just want to clarify that by extended learning, Board Member Wilson is referring to our summer programming.
Yes, thank you.
But we do have a presentation that is coming up that will explain summer programming for the coming summer. But from our summer school reports from last year, elementary did consider continuing to offering a virtual summer school option as well as an in-person summer school option. The major difference is we are expanding the number of seats available to students for summer school so that more students can take advantage of that between our in-person and virtual learning spaces. And we're pursuing some enrichment opportunities to really bring fun into summer school so that students can feel engaged as well as academically enriched at the same time. And so more will be forthcoming on our summer planning. But I think the major change is just the expansion of the number of students who should have access to summer school for elementary this year.
And just to build off what Dr. Wilson-Turner just said, we are also offering a virtual and in-person middle school program, as well as Albany High School summer school, virtual and in-person. And we are increasing the number of students who will be able to participate in both the middle level and the high school level. In addition, we will also offer our newcomer program at North Lark Street, and of course our extended school year program.
Anyone else with question or comment on the budget? Board Member Chatoor.
Just a comment. I mean, last time I talked about the 0% levy. So as much as I would have loved for a 0% levy, I can go along with the 0.95 because it's a cost of doing business. And in the big scheme, it is money going into a rainy day fund. And as things come off of grants and with all the new opportunities that we're creating, it will fund them downstream. So you're not looking at a 4% increase, 4 years from now. So it will help. And as overall, we are doing good. So.
Board Member Smith.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Chatoor, and I wanted to just acknowledge to the work of staff, Superintendent, Cabinet, in taking our questions and also that from the community to make some modifications to the budget. And so I really, really appreciate that, and I feel as if we got a little bit, of something that was needed for a lot of different aspects or members of our school community. So I feel like this is really good, and that you did go back and make some adjustments. And so this is something I feel very much like I can support this budget. I also think, if I'm understanding what President Savage said, I'm not, again, not to dwell on the music piece, I was more interested personally in making sure there was more music available. How you determine what that looks like, I leave to you and the experts. I just wanted to make sure there was that exposure. Sure, I appreciate your saying that. And that's generally how I feel about this whole budget approach. We have, it's parameters, right? But what it might look like is going to differ somewhat depending on one virtual academy. We don't know yet if that's in or out. Just lots of things like that. So I'm just wanting to make sure that I'm just, putting forth, I support this fully, and I thank staff very much for making some adjustments along the way. Thank you.
Anyone else? Board Member Almaniali.
I also wanted to comment on the 0.95 tax levy. It's important that we include this levy primarily because we don't want to fall behind. And I do appreciate that it's been 1% over the last 6 years on average. And I think it's really something that our residents also appreciate, even though, of course, everyone would like them to be lower. So I did have a question regarding, and this kind of takes it a little bit back, but with the transportation reimbursement for FEMA, was that like reallocated into this? So if I'm not mistaken, there was something like $400,000 in transportation expenses that we had unplanned, that were unplanned, and that we were expecting to pay out of our own budget money. But now that the FEMA funds are going to take that on, we reconstituted it into the overall budget, I'm assuming.
Deputy Superintendent Roy.
Thank you, Board President Savage. So stepping back to the district update, we did receive in the governor's, or the final, I should say, final adopted budget, that they will be reimbursing us for those expenditures. That was one of our tracking items from last year. So that was actually revenue we expected to receive last year. So the state is going to reimburse us at our transportation aid ratio for those expenditures. So it would be something in the 80% vicinity of that total expense. We have yet to receive any feedback from FEMA on the expenses that we've submitted to them for approval and reimbursement.
So it's not,
It would be both.
so it wasn't put, it's not in here, basically. Okay.
So, but I think the way it would ripple through would be, but we'll know at the end of this year where we stand. And if we haven't received it by the end of this year, it would fall into revenue for next year and ultimately become available to us to repurpose as we see fit somehow.
If we did not receive it this year, we would actually book it as an accrual that we would expect to receive. So it would not reflect in the 21-22 budget. It would actually be something that we would acknowledge ultimately in our 2021 closing statements.
I understand.
Thank you.
Board Member Krejci.
I just wanted to thank the administration for all the hard work that you have put into this over the past few weeks and months. I realize it's been very difficult with all the moving requirements and potential requirements, as well as the uncertainty about what funds we would receive and what we would do with those funds. I'm really ecstatic to see that we've managed to cover all our bases. We are increasing student supports and also investing heavily in improved instruction for our students. We're bringing back some of those exciting hands-on opportunities like music and athletics as students come back to the building next year. But I love that we're also budgeting the money for a virtual academy if we're allowed to do that in support of our students for whom it's safer to be home. So I'm really excited for what we're doing. I think I'm very much in support of the 0.95 levy because I think it's important for the residents of the city to invest in our education and have skin in the game. I think it's an appropriate, modest levy, but I think it's one that says we're willing to invest in our students and their futures. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
Anyone else with a comment? All right, all in favor. We need to actually have a motion first. We have a resolution in front of us, and this is the formal language that's required by law for the budget resolution. I'm not going to read it out loud, but it reflects the 270, 267, 867, which I always find extremely humorous because it's down to the dollar, as if we could predict our actual budget of that scale down to the actual dollar. But nonetheless, that's what we were required to do to show a completely zeroed out budget. So this is the resolution that is before us that I need to entertain a motion to adopt. Motion by Dr. Tutor, second by Board Member Smith. All in favor of adopting this resolution? That is unanimous. Thank you all very much. And I want to echo the comments of my colleagues when I say thank you so much for the incredible work that went into putting on this and the recognition of the changes that were needed to make this really reflective of the perception of the board about what the will of the community is, because that is the way it's supposed to work, and that's the way it did work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam President, members of the board, if I could have just a moment. to just say thank you very much for the support, the trust that you have put in us with regard to developing this budget. You know that it is not an easy feat, and we work tirelessly to make sure that we are bringing forth that information that we feel is in the best interest of our students. I want to say that I truly appreciate your questions. I appreciate the fact that we are an organization that values our public input, that sometimes we have to stop and take that time to go back and make sure that if there's something that comes up, that we are willing to address it. And I think that shows courage and bravery and a willingness to, number one, be transparent in how we communicate out our information. I also want to say thank you so very much for, I know that board meetings are your meetings, but I also know that we work together in making sure that we provide the information. And when we do what we do in terms of the 2 board meetings a week and then the weekend input, and then we take those questions and we apply that to what we've already done, and sometimes we have to pivot, and that's what we do. I appreciate, because there was a time when we needed to cancel a meeting, but we needed to make sure that we still were able to meet with the board to bring the information forward, that you were willing to add the additional meeting in at my request. I do appreciate that, so that we could make sure that we had the adequate time to explain carefully and in detail so that you could make a decision in the best interest of our students. And I have to take a moment to say thank you to our cabinet because of the team that we have, an outstanding team. And I will say that as a superintendent, there's nothing better than when you call at an odd hour and the people that you work alongside every single day still pick up the phone, and they know that that phone call means additional work and additional assignments no matter what time it is. So I do say thank you to Cabinet for everything that you do to support our students and to support the work that we do collectively on behalf of our students and families. So thank you very much.
All right, and so off we go. Now we are on to the next phase of the journey, because the next step on the budget process, the next milestone, is the budget hearing and the budget vote. Between now and then, there will be many opportunities for public comment, and I know that Mr. Lesko is working on making sure that those are shared, as are the various neighborhood associations, PTAs, and other groups. Sometimes I feel like if people can get 5 people together in their living room, as long as it's socially distant, we will come and tell you all about our budget. Those of you who've made the mistake of calling me to ask questions about the budget know that it can be hard to get me off the phone, because I want to help people understand exactly all that I understand. So we're happy to share, really, and I'm making a little bit of a joke, but really, if there is a group that has not previously had us come, we are available to do that for almost any organization of any size to help you understand what you'll be voting on in May. Okay. So in a very bizarre twist of events, we are going to have the policy section of our meeting, which is almost always immediately after routine consent, as the very last item on the meeting, because it is the only item on the meeting that had to do with discussion and not action tonight. Dr. Tutor.
Guess policy is the grand finale. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We have for discussion 4 policies today. The first one is 0101, gender neutral single occupancy bathrooms. This is a new policy and it's required. It addresses Chapter 353 of the laws of 2020, which requires school districts and BOCES boards to develop policies and procedures requiring that all single occupancy bathrooms in public schools and BOCES be designated as gender neutral, with appropriate signage on or near the entry door. This law is actually effective March 23rd of this year. The second policy is 1500, which is public use of facilities. We recently revised this policy in November of last year. The current change is just to add a reciprocal clause for cases where the district or the third party, the other party, agree to allow utilization of the spaces at no or nominal cost. Just a minor revision to that policy. The next one is 4511, which is textbook selection. This policy was updated based on the recent NISBA guidelines and now includes language for inclusion of culturally relevant instruction materials to further address issues of educational equity, inclusivity, and diversity. And lastly, we have 2210, which is board organizational meeting. This policy was revised to reflect that the new applicable law allows the first reorganizational meeting to be held during any day of the first week in July. And it was also revised to include the position of the data privacy officer that was created last year. So, entertain any questions?
Any
If not-
questions on these 4 policies? Board Member Elmanelli.
So I was actually wondering about policy 0101, the gender neutral bathrooms. Is there like a universal symbol for the gender neutral bathroom? Are we aware of that, anything like that?
I'm not aware of it. It's something that we could look into.
I was just curious. Thank you.
I believe the signs have already been ordered, and they're in English and no symbol
No
at
figure.
this time. So that would be something we'd have to add in later.
There may be some sort of representation on them. What we did was we took the model from Albany High and chose to replicate that throughout when we did our procurement of these signs. So they have been procured and they have been installed in compliance with the regulation.
So they're probably, so somebody out there in the world, in the district, knows what they look like because they look like whatever they look like at Albany High. Maybe, can somebody take a snap picture? Can somebody go find somebody at Albany High who can take a picture and send one to us just so we can know what they look like? Because I'm sure they're done with whatever the modern current technology or current symbology is. Symbology, is that a word? I may have made that up. Anyone else with a comment or a question on any of the policies? Seeing none, I know that we have not had any board committees since Monday, right? And are there any items of other business that people would like to bring to the floor? Board Member Smith?
Oh, it's just on the committee stuff. I know we're still a ways from it, but May 11th is that correct? May 11th?
19th.
Oh, excuse me. May 19th is our next, I guess I could wait to the next meeting then. But anyway, that's coming up. But just to signal to my board colleagues on that committee, we do have, in addition to regular facilities agenda items, we do have some facilities policy related things to attend to. So I wanted to draw your attention to that. So that's the 19th at 5:30. Thank you.
I would celebrate with the adoption of the facilities related policies. That would be so great. And the completion of our policy manual. That would be fantastic. Okay. Any other items of other business?
No, just a comment. Now that Foundation Aid is going to be fully funded, government relations needs to think about what are our new priorities.
We can all be so happy and be so lucky if that actually happens. Okay. Anybody else? I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Board Member Krejci, second by Board Member El-Banyawi. All in favor of adjourning? We are adjourned at 8:37 p.m. Have a good 2 full weeks. We will see you on May 6th.